Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to PBS News special live coverage of the ABC News presidential debate in Philadelphia. I'm Jeff Beck.
And I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight is a high-pressure moment for both Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Polls show that the race is a coin flip. This could provide momentum for either candidate as they get to the final stretch of the day.
The entire debate right here on Fox First Analysis.
Only time we will see these two candidates share a stake for the
Good evening, I'm David York. Thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis.
What's up? What's up?
So listen, we don't need to listen.
I'm gonna have to mute my TV because yours is about 3 seconds behind it.
Yeah. Listen, we don't have to listen to all this. We know kind of what's going on with that, right?
Well, I told you I don't normally watch these things because I think they're nothing but dog and pony shows. But if I'm gonna be asked for a comment, I need to know what the hell I'm commenting on.
Well, I heard that the Democrats tried to change the rules and unmute the microphones, unmute the unmuting part.
What I heard was that they suddenly realized the mics were going to be muted, and they're like, "Oh, that's not right, because that's going to hurt her, because she's not going to be able to live fact check him."
And they didn't allow that, did they?
No, the mics are going to be muted when it's not your turn to talk.
Very good.
Right. Well, I mean, that's gonna help Trump.
Ding, 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 ding,
Yeah,
ding. Are you ready to rumble? All
right, let's hear this.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking for
Any volume?
a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name-calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
Do you notice the one question I didn't
Donald
get
Trump
here
has no
answered yet?
What?
And when you
Are
look
you
at
better
his
off now than you were
plan
4 years
all
ago?
about
She never
Absolutely.
answered that question.
Never
I am
answered.
It's coming. I'm sure it's
describe
coming.
as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if
I'm
not
sure.
the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the
By the
future
way,
of America. What Goldman Sachs
for
has
you,
said
Timmy,
is that Donald Trump's plan
Who
Elliot
would
is it? I
make the
Ness.
can't see it.
economy worse.
Elliot
Mine would
Ness.
strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School
Bud Light?
Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit.
Nice.
16
I
Nobel
like that.
have
I
described
can't see it.
his
What's
economic
special about
plan
that,
as
Ken?
something that would
It's
increase
called
the
Elliot Ness.
by the middle of next year, would invite a recession.
Elliot Ness
You
version
just
of
have
Bud
to
Light,
look
huh?
at where we
Amber
are
Lager.
and where we stand on the issues. And I'd
Nice.
invite you to know
6.1%.
that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out. When a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with
I
our
don't believe that.
focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do
the end
to
justifies
support
the means.
workforce, so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick
We got
in terms of workers' rights.
vaccine,
But
right?
what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President
Yeah, and a lot of
Xi
his family made
for
money
what
off that
he did
vaccine,
during
didn't
COVID.
they?
Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done
Are you
in our country, and
serious?
when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million
You do
people.
know that smirk that she's got on her face is
It's a
what
lot.
cost Hillary Clinton,
21.
right?
That's bigger
Yeah.
than New York State pouring in.
Probably,
Just
but
look at
it's
what they're
probably so
doing to our,
diabolical what she's hearing this
they're
man
criminals.
say.
Many of these people coming in are criminals.
He's telling the truth. He was a Marxist professor.
Before we'll talk about
A
immigration.
lot of
And
people
Yeah,
don't
I know.
know.
And
my
you know
dad was a
they
my dad was a
disassociated their
police officer.
campaign. Yeah, they disassociated their
She has
campaign with him completely.
destroyed our country
They
with
didn't even mention
policy
him at the
that's
Democratic National Convention
almost
except very,
policy
very
that you
briefly.
say they have
Yeah.
to country.
And they didn't even talk about the fact that he was a professor at
I
USC,
want to
which
turn
she
to
went to
the
school.
issue of abortion.
Yeah.
President
And
Charlie, I
UC
didn't even see
Berkeley.
you jack in here.
So
Where
they've
are
been
you?
intentional about distancing themselves from him.
proud to be the most pro-life president in
Hold on, let me
American
get off
history.
again.
Then last month,
But
you
she
said
should
that
have
your
known he was going to pull
administration
that. You know what I'm
rape
saying?
women and their
I mean, of course.
rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that.
Trump doesn't know anybody's name, does he?
Because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is
I'll
really.
tell you, that's been the hardest, my hardest decision on the
abortion in the
ballot question about abortion
absolutely
is
fine.
because the length of time puts it
Execution
into the
after
third
birth.
trimester.
Execution,
You
no
can
longer
still have an
because the
abortion in
baby
the
is
third
born
trimester.
is okay. And that's not okay with me.
Absolutely.
Hence
Yeah.
the vote. But what
I
I
have
did
a nephew that was born at 6 months,
52 years.
and
they
when I
could
went to go
get
visit him
Roe
in the
v. Wade
NICU, there
into
was
the state.
a baby in there that was born at
Through the
5 months, and that young
genius,
man was struggling to
heart,
live.
strength
Gee
of
whiz.
6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and
I
life.
will say this is the most articulate I've
Strongly,
heard him sound.
also, 85% of Republicans do exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government and Donald Trump certainly should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I
Here's my
pledge to
question
you,
then. Why
when
didn't they
Congress
take
passes a
Ginsburg
bill
serious when
to
she
put back
told them
in place the
Roe v.
protections
Wade
of
was
Roe v.
going to be
Wade, as
overturned and they
President
needed
of
to
the
do
United
something
States, I
about
will
it?
proudly sign
I
it
don't
Yep.
in.
She
understand.
didn't
I
warn
don't.
them once. She
Absolutely.
warned them twice that Roe v. Wade was
Right.
going to be overturned.
The national
So how
abortion
does
ban.
that
Absolutely.
stop
Understand, in
incest,
his
Timmy?
Project 2025,
It's
there will be a national
it's the question
monitor
is
that
It
will be
doesn't.
monitoring your
they're
pregnancy.
saying how important it is to them, but here's the problem. Them was warned. They was warned when Bill Clinton was
They
president
were
and had a Democrat
right.
majority, and they did
Right.
not make a law to get Roe v. Wade no longer able to be overturned. They didn't
Same thing with the
overturn
Voting
it.
Rights Act.
Huh?
So what you're
Same
saying
thing
is
with the
because
Voting
they
Rights
didn't
Act.
protect it. So what you're saying is because they didn't protect it, that it was their fault that the justices
No, what
overturned
I'm
it.
saying
Had they
is
protected it,
right now. No,
the
no, no, Paul,
justices
Paul,
that
Paul.
Trump
Don't
appointed.
misquote me. Don't misquote me. What I'm
Okay.
saying is right now they're trying to tell you how damn important it is to you. But it's only damn important right now during an election year. When they
I get
had
what
the
you're talking
chance
about.
to fix the problem, they didn't fix the
They
problem.
didn't fix it, and so now you try to make the sense of urgency about abortion, when the sense of urgency should have been about Roe v. Wade.
Right.
It's like we try to make the
Ruth
sense of
Ruth
urgency about Project
Ginsburg.
2025.
Ruth
Right. I
Ginsburg
get you.
warned them twice that Roe v. Wade was a
50-50
flawed
vote.
decision
Senate and the
and
House.
could be overturned by a future court.
You won't even come
You
close.
would have
But
thought
you
they
know,
would
you
have
know,
then said,
Remind you when they said they're going to get.
but
And you think
part of the problem is
you think the Dems had enough support in the Supreme Court at that time to make those
no, but
changes?
they didn't need it in the Supreme Court. Under Bill Clinton, they had 2 years with a Democrat majority in the House and the Senate and a Democrat president that could have passed a law and fixed Roe v. Wade then. Then Obama, his first 2 years, he had a Democrat majority in the House and the Senate. He could have wrote a law and fixed it then.
You
It
mean
wasn't
I,
the Obama that they came in and said that we're not going to pass anything this man does, Obama?
that's
in other
remember,
words,
Paul, whoa, let's not get revisionary. The first 2 years of Obama's term,
What
he
can you
had a
do in
Democrat
2 years?
majority. He had a Democrat majority. All he had to do was turn to the Speaker of the Senate, Speaker of the House, and the President of the Senate and say, I want a bill on my desk in 2 weeks that fixes Roe v. Wade into law.
That had loans. They can never get this
Okay.
approved. So it doesn't matter.
That was it.
in other
Yeah.
words,
Go to Congress.
in other words, Paul,
For years, we
Congress
wanted to get it out of
makes
Congress,
laws.
federal government, and
The
we did
judicial
something
Supreme
that
branch
Court.
everybody said it
interpret
was
them.
done. And now
So
you have
Congress
the
had a
vote of the
chance to
people.
make a law
But
so that the
Congress said
executive
that they
authority
weren't
can
going to do
sign it in the
anything
law.
that
So
man
the
said.
No,
president,
Paul, you're talking about the Congress after his Obama's first 2
that's correct.
years
Yeah,
That's
so
with a
correct.
Democrat.
what do you
That's
concentrate
correct.
on in the first 2 years?
What do you concentrate? Well, if
In the first 2
abortion
years,
is
what would
if
you
abortion
concentrate
is
on?
so important, if abortion rights are so important to you, and you've got a liberal judge on the Supreme Court telling you that a future Supreme Court could overturn that decision, then you say,
IVF
important to me, what's my priorities? Are my priorities trying to grab health care? Because that's the first thing that Bill Clinton went for, was to try to grab health care. All right?
child care as it is
That's
have to travel
there wasn't their priorities.
to get on a
Now it's a priority because they want your vote.
to go and
Interesting.
get the health care
Interesting.
she needs.
All right.
Barely can afford to do it, and what you
I-
are
you know, and I'll say the same thing about Republicans when they sit back and tell me how
and
they're going to
people
cut spending.
have
I
not
say, you know what? The only Republican
in a
who
woman's
did
right
that
to
was a
about
guy
health.
named John Kasich
And that is
back
why
in
in
1993.
every state where this issue has been on the
And he
ballot,
was
I just feel like that
the people
we
of
have
America
an inclination as American people to
another
make
lie.
things almost like urban
Have been
legends.
a leader. On,
We
yeah,
believe it, but we don't act on it.
IVF,
And I mean, you see it throughout
leader.
history.
In fact,
When
when they
Hurricane Katrina hit New
executive
Orleans, a lot of
decision,
people said, "Well, it's like the old hurricane. We just gonna let it pass by."
people in Alabama and
You
the
know, I mean, a number of different things,
days
and I
later,
think our political issues are
I've
the
been
same way.
on it.
I think
We
that
know that
yeah, the
they
warnings came, the
allowed
handwriting was on the wall, but nobody felt inclined enough or moved enough
they,
to take any action behind it,
you
or
should
at
ask,
least not the right people.
will she allow
And so
abortion?
we're at this junction now where it's
Would
an
you support?
emergent thing
Why don't
with
you answer?
abortion and
That's the
Project
problem.
2025.
Roe v. Wade,
You know,
you could do abortions in the
My
7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
my
month,
my thing is,
probably have
my
birth.
father said to me many
Because
years ago
woman
when I was a kid,
of Virginia
never pay attention to the
didn't
words coming out of a politician's
decide
mouth,
determine what was
because if he's looking for your vote, he's lying through his teeth. You look at how he acts when he's not looking for your vote, and that's going to tell you how that man, you can expect that man to act. Because when he's not looking for your vote, he
So
ain't trying to impress
tell
you.
me, Timmy, when was the last time you knew Trump wasn't looking for your vote?
When was the last time I knew Trump? Dude, I've told you point blank. If I had had a third choice, I would have gone there. I was
But I
all
mean,
set to go with.
come
I was
on,
all
Timmy.
set to go with
All
the
politicians are going to be looking for your vote. They're not
right.
coming
But
over for tea. They're not coming over because they like the
but
way you press the
here's the
shirt.
thing. All right, you look at the way you got a history,
Drugs
right?
and human
You
beings.
you got a history with Trump. You
The
know what
States,
Trump's going to do when
including some of the
he's
most
not running
conservative
for reelection, right?
came up with a border security
Lie.
bill,
Yeah, go
which
ahead.
No, well, you know what he's going to
that
do. You
bill
know the
would
kind
put
of decisions he's going to
1,500 more
make
border
because
agents on the
he's
border.
already been there.
All
He's
those
shown
folks
you.
working there right
He's
now
shown you what he's about.
do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United
Yeah,
States. I know there are
and
so
do we
many
start
Yep.
with
families
the
watching
felonies or the snatching of the pussies?
by the
And
surge of
and and this
fentanyl.
one over here that
That
she's
bill
on now,
would have put more
okay?
to allow us to
They keep conveniently forgetting that the House passed a bill when it first came into session, under the Republican leadership. It passed a bill for what they wanted to see in immigration reform, and both Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer said, ain't even going to consider it. It's going down the toilet. We're not even going to discuss it.
And said, kill the bill. And you know why?
And now they're all on this kill the bill thing, right? This bill that they tried to pass was nothing like what the House said they wanted. So this bill was not going to live in the House. But the Republicans won't tell us what they want. Well, they did. And you said, flush it down the toilet. It's no good.
And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration law tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies.
is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back.
I don't care about the size of a
Our country
rally.
is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like
Paul, get your
they,
president.
they want to bring our country
What?
back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase. Make
Get your
America great
president
again.
talking about people eating
She's
cats.
destroying this country. And if
Eating
she
cats and
becomes
dogs, the
president, this
immigrants that
country
have
doesn't have a
overrun
chance
Aurora.
of success.
I'm
Not only
assuming it's
success,
Aurora, Illinois.
developing Venezuela
This
on
guy.
steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up
Over in Springfield, you see him walking down the street
Ohio.
with those geese.
there. He told us there have been no credible reports.
The Haitians have invaded. They imported 20,000.
Immigrant community.
And
Well,
it's really
What?
for voting.
let me just say here, this is the
The people on
this is
television
a
say
clear.
my dog was taken and
Wow.
used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
I ate dog in
Talk
Korea.
about
You know,
extreme.
that's what they do in Korea.
You know, when you're
You
from
know,
Korea
this
or
is, I
you know,
think, one
somewhere
of the
where they
reasons
eat
why
dogs,
in this
dogs
election,
disappear.
I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans
Hey,
who have formerly worked with
we eat
President
cows.
Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national
He looks
security
like he's
advisor
got
has said he
jaundice.
is
His
dangerous
nose
and
is
unfit.
orange.
His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive
I think that's the
another
tan oil.
Trump term.
Maybe.
And when we
The street tan.
listen to this
That's
kind
bad.
of
That's
rhetoric,
bad makeup.
when the
I mean, look at
issues
the
that
line
affect
across
the
his
American
forehead.
people
Oh my
are not
gosh.
being
Yeah, it's
addressed,
pretty horrible.
I think the choice is clear in this
They
election.
didn't get under
President
his
Trump will give you a
eyes.
quick minute to
His
respond.
hair is better though.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the vice president has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S.
With local
military.
police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and
So
crime in
that
countries
text
all over the
message I
world
just got
is
come in
way down? You know
says
why?
urgent
Because they've
before
taken
Kamala steps off the stage at the presidential debate. 800% match your Dem House donation.
mistakes and usually for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it
Nice.
because they're
Nice.
I'm not
I
exaggerating.
wonder. I
Sorry.
wonder how they're
it's
raising
not
so
been
much money.
anything done like this.
800%
How did you
match.
get on? I want to know how you got on that list because I'm
Because
expecting a test about buying some
because my
gold gym
wife
shoes.
because my wife
Oh,
my wife's in the International Service Employees Union, and the day that the damn union rep was over here, she gave the union rep my cell phone number as hers.
ooh, that's neat.
So I get all these texts from the state and national Democrat Party because I'm now in my phone number's in Act Blue, but I also get them from the Republicans because I'm in Think Red because I donated to a local Republican candidate.
Violent crime is actually coming down in this country, but
You know that nothing's local anymore.
They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be fraud.
Is in November of his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President.
Fake.
Weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which the election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military.
Like I said, that's the look that cost Hillary Clinton.
We're back in the White House with no guardrails.
You said the look of possibility, Tim.
Won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy.
Why did they unmute his mic?
With a fake Russia investigation.
We do have a lot to get.
Why did they unmute his mic?
Vice President Harris, in your last run,
Where's this bandit?
wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on
What's
foreign
going
oil.
on with her neck?
We have had the largest
It looks like she's got
increase in
tattoos.
domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we
She's getting
cannot
old, Paul.
on foreign oil.
Wow, I've
Uh,
never
As it
seen
relates
that.
to
I
I
was
mean,
gonna say
I
maybe
guess
maybe
it's
maybe
shadow.
her facelift is sagging.
Working mother who worked
She
at
didn't,
That could be
she
true.
didn't get the platinum one, did she? She got the gold.
The values I bring to the importance of home ownership.
It almost seems like a hollow spot up in there.
On a
Right,
single
yeah, it's a
platter and then file
shadow. It's her
bankruptcy
neck
6 months
casting the shadow on
is
her
a
neck.
value that I bring to my work to say we are going to
That's
work with the private
interesting.
sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes.
But what
by
I
3
got going
million
on
homes
here
by
at
the end of
Trump,
my first
there's a
term.
line on
My
his
work
forehead that
that
looks
is
like
related to
horns.
having a friend when I was in
You
high
see
school.
Oh,
that?
he's the Orange Man. Didn't you know that? He's the Orange Man.
And
But
my
look at the
Come on,
line on
Paul.
his
Tell
forehead.
me you
Don't you
haven't
see?
seen the Orange Man memes on
Well,
Facebook.
I have never
that is
seen those
deeply
horns on
grounded
his
in the
head before.
importance of standing up to
That
those
is
who are
messed
most
up, man.
Hey, that look like his
That makeup
mugshot
artist has
there.
got to be
Horns,
fired.
Paul.
Medicare is based on long-standing work
You
that
see
I
that,
have done,
don't you? Come on
protecting
now.
seniors'
Somebody else
food
has to
stamps.
see
That's the
that.
I
mugshot.
do. I
Values
see.
have not
No,
Jarvis, you
horns.
backing me
I'm
up?
not seeing
Hey,
horns. Where you see it?
is a president who
hey, he
acts
get back
Where,
in, he gonna tear their ass
in a
up.
perspective that is about
You're right.
where the horns at? I'm looking for the horns.
You don't see the horns on that man's
the
head?
true measure of the leader.
No, I don't see the horns on his head.
You don't see the line that forms above both eyebrows going up into that hair?
I intend to be
Yeah, Richard sees
Nah.
it. Richard sees it.
That man is the devil, y'all. I'm sorry. That's evident.
But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built
Oh,
it
that's
into
hilarious.
many billions of dollars, many billions. And when people see it, they
Paul,
are
turn that
even
into a meme.
surprised. So we don't have to talk
Hold
about
on,
that.
it's a close up. Hold on,
She's
it's a
been
close up
against it
now.
for
You gotta
12
see
years.
it. Wait, oh no.
Oh, you talk about those kind of dark above his eyebrows
Yes.
that are going up at an
Very
angle?
wrongly, very
Yes.
horribly, and everybody's laughing at it. Okay, they're all laughing at it. She gave
I wonder if that's his
12,
facelift
probably
sinking.
14 to 15 different cases. Right. She was big on
Maybe,
crowdfunding
maybe.
in Minnesota.
It
She
looks
was
where they did the lobotomy.
Where they did the lobotomy. That's actually where his Spock eyebrows were, but they didn't want anybody to know he's a Vulcan.
wanted to let criminals that killed people, that
That's it.
burned down Minneapolis. She went out and raised money to get them out of jail.
That's really the reason
She
for
did
the
things
bandage
that
on the
nobody would
ear.
ever
They
think
had to
of. Now
clip
she wants to do
the spike in his ear.
transgender operation to illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your gun, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going the roof. They immediately let these guys go.
That's smart. I think she's trying to keep from laughing at some of
It's
the
been
stuff this man is saying.
5 times, 4 times, 5 times.
I've actually
higher.
seen
Because you're
20
talking about
cent
3.5
a
years
gallon
ago.
swing
They got
in
it up
gas
to where
from
I
one
was,
day to the next
because they
down
had no
here
choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling.
at the same gas station. 20 cent
So they said, let's
swing
go back to
in
Trump.
24 hours.
Won the election the day after that election.
Here's my problem. I can't believe anything that comes out of his mouth. I don't know when he's lying and when he's telling the truth. And most of the time,
That's my issue.
I think he's telling on himself.
Quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country.
And these are not good things for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis.
Hey,
Mr.
Marcus
President,
is
on
here.
January 6th,
The Democrats, they're not going to want to leave.
right there with them.
They're going to have to bring the military in.
What played out at the Capitol that
You
day,
think
the
so?
officers coming under
Oh,
attack.
absolutely.
Aides in the
They're
West
not
Wing
Wait a
giving up
minute.
that
So,
power easy.
so wait a minute. You're thinking the Democrats are going to do what was being threatened by the Republicans?
Trump left,
Not,
but they're not leaving.
Oh,
They
wow.
got too much to lose.
About what you did.
They're not going to go.
You just said
They're going to
a thing
unloose
that isn't
all of these
peacefully
illegals
and
and people who have
patriotically.
been
I said
brought in here for rioting, and it's going to be
peacefully,
going nuts in the city.
patriotically.
Wait a minute.
November
Wait
going
a
to be
minute. Wait a
something to
minute.
see.
Wait a minute. Wait. So hold up, Richard. You're saying that the Democrats are going to riot if Trump wins.
Absolutely.
What's going to happen if Trump loses?
Well, he'll win, but they're going to say that it was election interference by some foreign government, and they'll say that he didn't win, and they're not going to concede, and then it'll be riots in the streets. I'm telling you.
So either
I
way
mean,
it goes, we got riots coming.
Well, 4 years ago, Biden got 81 million ballots.
No, that's not the statement I
Trump
made.
got
I
100 million
just
votes.
made a statement.
That's
I
the
just made a
difference.
statement, and I need you to either yay or nay it. So either
No, I'm
way
saying
it goes,
it's
we
going to
got
be
riots.
riots in
Hey,
November.
Paul.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm thinking you're probably not far off of accurate on that one there. I think no matter which side wins, in November, December, there's going to be some problems.
About what?
And
Yes,
I had
it's
nothing to do with that
the
other
thing
than they
that
asked me to make a
No.
speech. I
people
showed
don't
up.
understand
have any of
is
you ever seen? Have
All
any
you
of
have
you
to
ever
do is
seen the
look at
Umbrella
what
Academy?
happened
the
during the
Umbrella
riots
Academy.
under George Floyd
Yes.
in the name of George Floyd.
So
They're going
it's
to
a
do the
so
same thing. And you
it's
know
a
what
show
they
that comes
called
on
them?
Netflix,
They
right?
called them
Yeah.
peaceful.
Hold on a second, Jarvis. Let's see what Richard's saying.
Okay.
Finish up, Richard.
They called them peaceful protesters when they were out there burning up, blowing up, rioting, looting. They said they're mostly peaceful protesters. You didn't see nobody out there that was rioting. They tried to assume or situate the January Sixers as though that, but I have a tape and I have some other information that'll show that Black Lives Matter and Antifa was in town January 4th and 5th, and they put on MAGA hats, MAGA shirts, and they went in there, and while he was giving a speech, they was breaking out windows. All that's taped. All that was taped. That was the biggest sting operation ever executed.
Amazing.
Ever executed in the history of the United States.
Reason. But this is
Hold
not
on.
an
Okay, hold
isolated
on.
situation.
So Jarvis,
Wait,
what
now,
were you
now wait,
what were you
Jarvis
about
was
to say?
making a
Jarvis,
point. I want to hear what Jarvis was saying.
yeah, what you got to say after that,
So
Jarvis?
Spewing
in they got the show called Umbrella Academy, and they got 4 seasons of it. And each season, this group of kids who that they make to be superheroish or have these special powers try to find a way to undo the damage that they find out that they've done to cause the end of the world. They, unfortunately, in the first season, are the cause of the apocalypse through mistake or misstep or what have you. Every season that they go into this timeline, because they're able to travel back and forth in between time to try to fix what they've done, they find themselves ending the world. So they finally go back into season 4, and they find themselves trying to prevent the end of the world. And finally, instead of them trying to go and fix the timeline, they try to undo the timeline by ending with the world. I think that what we're dealing with as far as riots and the place that this country has come to with civil unrest, it's inevitable that the riots are going to happen. It's just a matter of when and where and how bad.
It's a, and the worst part, and I keep trying to point this out to my kids, to my friends' kids, whoever I'm talking to, is you got these political parties that are steady dividing us on
Yeah.
us against them, and these people don't, when they're not asking us for a vote, they don't really give a damn about us. And I've seen it from both sides, where activists are telling people, if you go to Thanksgiving dinner and your family is talking about voting for the other guy, you need to go at them. You need to come to battle. I got friends all over my Facebook feed that I don't give a damn if I'm making you angry. This election is too important, and I'm going to say what I feel needs to be said. And the day after the election, they're going to tell you, okay. I just, as a people, we need to understand that politics. My money guy, and Paul knows him, Junie. He said to me one day, he said, you can get all involved in politics all you want. At the end of the election, you got to live in the world, and you need to figure out how you're going to adapt to the new order in the world.
Agreed. You know what I mean? You're supposed to accept the loss and what they say, pivot.
Yep.
So if the Democrats lose, then Democrats need to pivot. If the Republicans lose, they need to pivot. I don't know where this riot mentality came from. There wasn't a riot mentality pre-Trump. Nobody was talking riots during Reagan. Nobody was talking riots during Bill Clinton. Nobody was talking riots during Obama.
Well, I gotta be honest with you.
What's different now?
Paul, do you remember my cousin Dala?
I do.
All right. So Dala said to me one day, she said, "I'm just gonna put it right out there.
We need two things. We need
that we need to step up and start kicking some butt, because we need to be respected, we need to be heard, and it's time to stop being gentle."
They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in.
All right. So it's out there. There's a lot of people, they've gotten so wound up on one side or the other that they're feeling, I mean, that's why you get people getting shot, is because they're getting so frustrated. People are getting so wound up and so caught up in shit, and they can't do nothing else about it but go shoot somebody.
Well, when I was a citizen in the great city of Flint,
that's how we lost. If you look at the facts,
I had the privilege of having conversations with various people and relationships, and some people I grew up with, but I know one individual in particular that I had the opportunity to not only grow up and get to know this individual, but he said something that struck me, and he pointed out that he was tapped on the shoulder by a high official, and that individual paid for his flights, hotels, and he said he couldn't believe how much money they were giving him. But his job was to go into the inner cities wherever there was any unrest. For example, the Michael Brown situation, the George Floyd situation. His job was to go in, fly in when those hotbed topics come up, find the work groups that are hot and mad and angry, and he would encourage them to riot, and then he would go out there and get it going, to help them get it going, and then he would fly out and he would go to the next situation. And that was his job. He was an agitator, a paid agitator. I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but I think some of you, if you know him, you've probably been around him. But I can believe that because of the situation that he put me in one time. So I say that to make it clear that there are paid agitators who simply are there to create chaos
I agree.
and move on. And this is what's going to happen in November, whether we wanted to know it or not. If it don't happen in November, it'll be December. And we're gonna find out quickly that these are not just everyday people who are angry. These are people who are brought in, bussed in, for the very purpose of getting things fired up, blown up, and move on.
So
and
now
once
we're gonna have
fire's
buses.
lit,
We're gonna
move
have
on.
buses passing each other on the highway with angry Dems and angry Republicans going in opposite directions to each other's cities to start crap, right?
Yeah. And the goal is
basically.
the goal is not about Republican or Democrat. What this really is about is to get a civil war going. Because when you get that going, you can now declare martial law. You can introduce insurrections, and you can say things like that. And more importantly, if you can get us into a war with another country while we're distracted, now you use the terrorists that came over on the border during the time that we were just relaxing, and we have all these terrorists and people coming in our country.
Richard, let me ask this. Then that's the last thing the Republicans want to happen while the Democrats are in power, right?
No. The truth is, we have a uniparty. We keep thinking that one Republicans and Democrats, or Detroit Lions versus Philadelphia. When they get off the court, they go to the club.
Okay, hold on.
Richard,
I need to back up. The incumbent government has control of the military, right? So those that are rebelling against the incoming government have to deal with the military, as opposed to the incoming government having to deal with civilians and rebels and militias, right?
Mm-hmm. So here's what you can see. When you see a number of thousands and thousands, if not millions, coming across our border that we haven't vetted, they didn't come to the front door, they came through your back door, we can now safely say that we don't know who that is. So now that they're here, we have to understand that we have a threat in the backyard. We have a threat in the front yard. And what I'm saying is we are under a threat. And here's why. Because we don't know where they're coming from. If they're coming from Africa, Asia, from the Middle East, or simply from the borders of Mexico or El Salvador, what we're dealing with are unknown individuals. Now, Democrats call it.
Wait a minute. Are you going to roll this back to the insurrection and the riots? Come on.
Well, what I'm rolling back, what I'm showing you right now is what's happening currently. So when that happened, when you get an army, now you have people like Dick Durbin and individuals like that who are suggesting that now that we have illegal aliens in our country, what we need to do is enroll them in the military. And if you fight for us, then we'll make you citizens. Well, what fight are they talking about? Is it against the American people, or is it to join a battle in the foreign wars? They don't need anybody in the foreign wars. The goal is to have America overtaken, because if you have America overtaken, guess what? You get to throw out the Constitution. Once we're defeated in our country, the Constitution is no longer viable. This is the whole goal. This is why free speech is important. This is why the Second Amendment is important. They want the guns because the militia is the people.
So
it's not the person in Georgia.
My point is valid. The last thing you want to happen is to have the people in power be in power when the rebellion starts.
Well, that's what they want. That's why they bring in people in, because the whole purpose is to dilute America.
Who's bringing people in, Richard? Who's bringing people in? The Republicans or the Democrats or both?
Well, the people in power. The people
So
in power are
Democrats
bringing them
are.
in.
We're gonna say the Democrats are in power now, and
Yeah.
you're saying that that's why they're opening the borders, so in hopes that all these immigrants that
What I
come
will
across
say
the
is that
border will be Democrats.
here's what I'll tell you. In 2015, I went to Washington, D.C.
I thought I asked a specific question.
Yeah, but I'm going to get to that point. I went to Washington, D.C. in, I think it was 2014, going on 15, and they were having a conference. It was a Department of Homeland Security, and they were talking about the title of the book. And I got a book in there that has a title. It says Open Borders. And part of the discussion was that Obama wanted open borders. Now, I know that he's the sacred guy and everybody bowed down to him because he's the quote unquote first black president, which is not true. But the reality is that he wanted open borders. Now, Europe is open borders. You don't need to be have a passport. You can cross over, and this is what they wanted. That's why you got the European Union. They wanted the North American Union. This is all about open borders. And this is what this is all about. Dilute the country and the citizenship, raise up illegal aliens in the country, and change the culture and change your religion, change your God, change your politics. All this is all a part of the scheme. The reality is this, and I'll say this, and I'll be quiet. I just want you to
admires dictators, wants to be.
Go for it.
And what I wanted to point out is that they simply want to remake America. That's it. And the best way to do that is to flood the borders, and you use the trans-infection shot for people to take so you can make everybody sick, right? And see, people disagree with me, but I'm just going to say what it is. It's going to be so many people dying just from that. If they're not, we already know that they're dying, but it's going to be more. But the reality is this: once the trans-infection shot takes course and people start falling, you see, then it's going to be over time. Then they can just gradually introduce more and more legal aliens, and now they're the new America. And guess what? They don't know the Constitution. They don't understand that the executive power, the judicial power, the legislative power, and that there's the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the freedom of religion. They don't understand what it means to bear arms, or the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment.
I thought you said you was gonna stop. I thought you said you was gonna stop.
I'm done.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a drink on that. Yeah.
You know what my opinion is, Paul?
Oh my God, the world according to Richard is scary as hell. All right, go for it, Timmy. What you got?
So you ever read anything about the end of the Roman Empire?
Yes and no. Yeah.
What did they call that period of time?
The Renaissance. No, it wasn't the Renaissance. What was it?
The days.
What? The Dark Days?
The days of bread and circus.
That's right.
Okay.
Exactly. That's true.
That's where we're at right now in the United States. We're in the days of bread and circus. The circus is in Washington, D.C., and the government going to give us the bread to have us just sit down and watch the circus and be stupid.
And then the result.
How many kids today?
The result is progress, huh?
How many kids do you know today that aren't in scouting and aren't interested in political science can tell you about how your local, state, and federal government function?
I have never had that conversation. I can't get past.
I've had that conversation.
Get past the sagging pants.
The worst one was the other day. I'm listening to NPR, and NPR is interviewing this reporter in Phoenix, Arizona, about the heat wave, 100 plus days over 100 degrees, and what needs to be done in Phoenix, Arizona. and this reporter said, we need to get the Department of Education to set some policies and tell us what to do.
Interesting.
All right. Does that sound like the right idea for fixing a problem in Phoenix, Arizona?
It doesn't sound like they talked to the right person. It sounds like that.
It doesn't sound like they have a clue.
It
that
sounds
their
like that was
local
a
government.
It doesn't sound like a common citizen would have that as an answer.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is that the first thought these days now is the federal government needs to come up with a solution. The federal government needs to be doing this.
You think so?
I know so.
I mean, I don't think that way, Timmy. Do you think that way?
I don't think that way. You don't think that way, but you and I we're outliers.
Why do you say that? Why aren't we the majority?
Why? Well, because we are.
I mean, I think
dude.
we're the majority.
I just retired from. I just retired from 23 years of working at a university.
Right.
All right. I met people who went to that university as a student, got a job at that university, never worked a day in the civilian world except for when they worked at McDonald's flipping hamburgers and filling French fry baskets while they were going to college. Tell me how the government is the answer to all the ills
that's the problem
in this world.
Really?
Yeah.
So I have never had a conversation like that with anyone.
I've had it with plenty of people. And that young lady that I tried to introduce you to up there that called me from Flint, Michigan to help her fix a problem. She was one of them that believed that the government is the federal government is the answer. That's where all answers come from.
Interesting.
Yeah. Did you know that the goal of this entire movement is to federalize the police? My dad used to talk about this for years. And he said they want to federalize the police. That means they're going to get rid of the city of Flint. They'll make the county and this is all over the country, by the way. They'll make the county the police. They'll infuse. They've already taken certain steps. For example, they've added what we call the consolidated 911 line. So City of Flint used to have their own dispatch. Now they have the county. They dispatch for the entire Genesee County. That was the goal. That's one of the first steps. The next step is it won't be long before the city of Flint will close down their police department. It's coming. Mark my words. They've already did away with the academy, gave it to the college. Now they're going to get rid of the police, and it'll be Genesee County that will respond to all of the issues.
Well,
and while I was serving, certain areas didn't get service. For example, Alma, Ruth, all those streets, they stopped servicing them people. And people don't realize when they talk about defund the police, it's already happening, but they're doing it strategically. And these are Democratic-run cities. This ain't Republican-run cities. These are Democratic.
In my area.
And they're doing everything that's moving people away. And now when you look up, you ain't gonna have a police.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Chris is jacked in from Tennessee. Say hello.
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 Yeah. In my area, right?
Your
I live in St.
frozen,
Petersburg.
Timmy.
Yeah. I live in St. Petersburg, and St. Petersburg proper, we have St. Petersburg Police Department. However, in unincorporated areas of St. Petersburg and Kenneth City, we have Pinellas County Sheriff's Department doing the policing in those areas because those areas have gotten rid of their police departments because it was more cost effective to have the sheriff do the job for them.
Mm-hmm.
That's already happening down this way.
And it's spreading across the country, and it's gradual. People are gonna look up, and it's not gonna be any police to answer your calls. And then they're gonna scream, We need police. And what's
Well,
going to
why
happen?
do you say that, Richard? Why wouldn't the sheriff end up hiring the police from the city? And they're going to have more area to cover, so they're going to need more police. So why wouldn't they absorb those officers coming from the cities that they integrate with?
They do to a point.
Yes.
To a point they do. They take on a certain amount of the local cops. Like the guy next door to me, when he retired from the city of St. Pete, he was recruited by the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department because his reputation as a narc officer with city of St. Pete, Pinellas County Sheriff wanted him on their narc team.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
so they do
Well,
to a
listen, I
point.
introduced you guys to Chris. I didn't introduce Chris the opposite. Richard Ditch there. Wave your hand, Richard. And the one
What's
that's
going on,
not
Chris?
moving,
So
he's in Florida. And the one that's not moving is in Florida to St. Pete. That's Timmy.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I can reboot my camera without going out of it.
Okay, you can go out and come back in. We'll let you back in.
So we really have a choice between two candidates. One is introducing or reintroducing the Bolshevik Revolution. Most people they're not familiar with that, right? And the other one is saying, look, let's focus on rebuilding the country. Let's be stronger. The other one is saying, listen, I like socialism. I like communism. And because of her skin color, we tend to say, oh man, she's beautiful.
Wait a minute, you weren't talking
she's
about
black.
Trump? Oh my God,
Huh?
Richard, I thought you were talking about Trump. You talking about Kamala?
Yeah, look, she's from India. Her daddy's from Jamaica, right? Her mama's both her daddy and her mom was Canadian. They came over here, taught over here, got a visa. When their visa expired, they left. Kamala stayed. She overstayed her visa. She's not born in America, and people, she don't have the black girl effect. But even though she looked that way, people have this real misunderstanding. And the things that she's pushing is along the line of the Bolshevik Revolution. It has more to do with talk about the rich need to pay their fair share. That's the same thing they said in 1917. That's the same thing. That's how Russia became the Soviet Union. Russia was Russia. Then it became the Soviet Union.
All right, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's watch a little bit more of the debate.
That's a lot.
Let's see if we can talk about it a little more. Hold
on.
That's a lot. That was a lot. A lot. Oh my
the
God.
Artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided. Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour.
She's a lawyer. I was expecting that kind of conversation. She's good.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow much happier than he is right now. But eventually, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but He does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify?
No.
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fella. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times.
Zelensky.
The reality is it has been about standing as America always should.
She said
As
he
a
asked
leader
about
upholding international
She never answered the question.
as a
Never.
leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world
I'm still waiting for the answer to the question. Are we
Thank
better off
you.
now
Me
than we
too.
were 4 years ago?
friends and not
You
I
don't
never
answer
heard that
anything.
answer.
I want you to answer that, Timmy. Are you better off now, or than you were?
Than I was 4 years ago.
I was too.
I'm
No,
better off.
I'll tell
I'm
you
better
the
off
one, the
now.
one thing, Paul. The only reason why all this inflation hasn't really killed me is because of the fact that my kids moved out.
So you're better off now.
Because I don't have to feed 4 kids.
So you're better off now.
No, I had to go and get a part-time job, start my own company, and call Paul for help to print some flyers.
Times is hard. Times is hard.
Times is tough, and you ain't getting no Christmas card.
Who is that beeping? All right, let's listen to a little more. Let's listen.
On NATO, I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate. We witnessed a moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed
No.
with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this. And the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And
well, if he thought he was respected, why wouldn't he?
Former president,
The same place that Menachem Begin
to
went.
Camp David
Yeah.
because
I
he
mean,
does
because
not
he
again
could.
appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be
But he
commander in
doesn't
chief
think
with
the
a level
Taliban's a
of
problem,
respect.
lady.
And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers,
Exactly.
the
Yes.
work that we must do to uphold
You mean Menachem Baby and Anwar Sadat
United
went
States of
to,
America around
they
the
went
world.
there.
Harris, thank you. President Trump, your
So
response.
that's
Yeah.
where you take your
Yeah,
enemies
Yeah, thank you.
and try and create
So,
peace.
if you
Okay.
take a look at that
What
period of
about
time,
terrorist organizations like
the Taliban,
who ultimately struck a deal that ended, and then Trump didn't even have the guts to carry out his own deal. He let Biden do it.
Huh.
It was supposed to happen under the Trump administration. He never followed through. Like he doesn't follow through on anything.
I got involved.
We didn't have no wars.
I would say Afghanistan was a war.
I would say it was.
And he said, "Why do you send me a picture of my house?" I said, "You're going to have to figure that out, Abdul." And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo.
Men I trained that ended up over in
The reason
Afghanistan
it was
thought
good,
it was a war.
it was-
They were being
Well,
shot
see,
at
I'm not
under
against him.
Trump.
I'm not against him talking directly to the Taliban. That sounds like
I'm not either.
a good move. You know, we tired of the government
Good
acting
move.
as the intermediary and not doing what, you know, I ain't mad at that.
Just to finish, they blew it.
But
The agreement
5,000
said you have to
release?
do this,
What did we
this,
get
this,
for it?
This, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And
Yeah, they
these
did.
people did the worst withdrawal and, in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you.
Really?
I want to move on now to racism
Absolutely
in this
incompetent.
country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, "I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black." I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care.
Yeah, you do.
You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less.
She made a
Whatever
big
she wants to
deal.
be is
They said
okay
it
with
was
me.
But those
She's
were
a
your
chameleon.
words.
I don't know.
One
I
day
don't know.
she's
I mean,
black,
all I can say is I
another day
read
she's
where she
Indian.
was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her.
My biggest
That's up to
problem is
her.
right there.
Vice President Harris, your
is
thoughts on this?
Why are we?
I think it's,
identifying
I mean, honestly,
with
I think it's
dividing this
tragedy
country up?
that we have
I heard this news
someone who
report the other day
wants to be
talking about
president
how
who
much
consistently
money
over the course of his
Latinas
career
contribute
attempted to use race.
the tax. And I'm like, why are we segmenting out Latinas? Because we're dividing. We divide. And that way there we can create a us against them mentality.
Did you turn off your camera?
No, my camera's still frozen.
Oh, I got nothing. I got no pictures from you. I don't even know where
See,
you are.
the media pushing racial idolatry. They want to keep race,
Let's remember
sex, gender, and keep pushing it. And then we as black people and white people, we get emotional
Young
and we want to weigh in on something that's irrelevant. When 17 years ago, when I was in graduate school, we talked about politics
This is
and policy, the dichotomy.
birth their lives.
And he said, the professor said this. He said, pretty soon they're going to blur the lines. So now when we hear about race, that's politics. When you hear about policy, like economic,
A friend. We see
we can't see it because we're thinking about politics. And that's part of the problem. All this racial idolatry. I'm against them, and she said, he said.
Can we please
And you know what? It's a waste of time, and it's a distraction because what they really want is a race war.
One of the other reports.
Buy into that, we'll be fighting one another while they over there starting another war. We need to knock that off and focus on policy. See, we need to start voting with our pocketbook and stop voting with our emotions.
Richard, I don't want to live in your world, baby. I don't want to live in your world.
Well, one of the other reports I heard, and this one was the one that killed me. Let me ask you a question. Is it legal to hire an undocumented, quote, illegal immigrant?
I bet it
Yes.
is.
Huh?
I
Yes.
bet it is.
It's legal for a company in the United States to hire an illegal immigrant.
And the
It's not.
what's the restriction?
Hey,
It's
everything
not.
went black, Paul. I don't know what happened.
I was trying to put Tim up, but
Okay.
It's-
he's not
I'm gonna have
smiling.
to
So
go
he's not
out.
smiling, so he can't see him.
But I'm listening to this news report, and the reporters, the news that she thinks is critical is how much money that illegal immigrants are paying in payroll taxes. And I'm like, no, honey. I'm yelling at the radio. No, honey. The news is the fact that we know there are illegal immigrants on company payrolls that are, paying payroll taxes. There's supposed to be a whole database that they're supposed to be checking, and they're not supposed to be hiring illegal immigrants. If somebody doesn't have a social security number or the correct document as a green card holder.
Wait, back up. I thought you said it was legal to hire.
No.
illegal.
I said, is it legal? And the answer is no.
Undocumented aliens can be hired. Illegal aliens can't, right?
Well, what's the difference between an undocumented and an illegal?
Undocumented is waiting for the process to take place.
That's somebody that came in this country and didn't have to.
An illegal ain't even waiting. Undocumented has got his court date.
Don't play semantics with me.
Has got his court date. Well, see, it's semantics, right? Undocumented's got a court date that's 4 years away because our court systems.
That's somebody that came into this country illegally and is trying to become a legal resident. In the meantime, they're not supposed to be working in this country. All right, I hear this too many times, about this, and
So
I'm
I
of
still
the
don't
mindset.
know if it's legal or illegal. Are you saying it's legal or illegal to hire these people?
If they don't have the documentation, they're not supposed to be hired.
So what should happen? What should happen, Timmy?
Huh?
The companies.
That's the question. That's the $1 million question right there, Paul. Is
so
if they're undocumented.
If it's against the law, Timmy, there's got to be a punishment for it, right? There wouldn't be a law that just says don't do that. So there's got to be a law that says if you get caught doing this, then this happens, and if you get caught the second time, then this happens.
Paul, there's a law that says they weren't supposed to cross over the border, and it still happens and doesn't get enforced.
But it sounds like we've got another way now to enforce stuff. If we know if we know that Company A is hiring 1,500 illegal aliens every season to pick tomatoes, then all we need to do is shut them down.
It's supposed to be.
All we need to do is raid their fields. And then
it sounds
all
good
you
on
have
paper.
To do is pay $22 for a head of broccoli.
It sounds good on paper.
Paul.
Doesn't sound good to me.
Paul.
Yes, sir.
I want to see the line of Americans that are lining up to pick tomatoes. I want to know where they are.
Where are
they? Because that stuff ain't happening.
No. So here's the deal on that, right?
Hold on, Jimmy. Let him talk.
Yeah.
All right. Again, I want to see the line of people. I mean, to me, that's a false issue. Okay, nobody's out there trying to be sharecroppers. The last thing, my mother and father and all those were sharecroppers. The last thing they want to do is go work in a rice paddy. That's what.
And that's the red herring that always gets brought up in this.
Dude, I am talking. You got an issue with letting me talk? Thank you. Okay, I'm an Army captain. I'm putting up with this. Okay.
Both military boys.
What happens? Don't stereotype about the military. If you ain't been in there, you don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I'm a retired Marine, so we know where we're at.
Huh? No, you don't know where you're at.
Yeah, I'm a retired Marine, so if you want to throw Army captain up in front of me, I'm a retired Marine.
Then talk like one and let me finish. Thank you. Okay. Where was I at? If you really want to stop this, everybody goes after the poor folks. I think the brother made a comment earlier that they just keep people going after each other. Okay, if you want to stop people working for Amazon that don't belong here or GM that doesn't belong here, go after them. They're the ones that hire them. A multi-million-dollar corporation will figure out a way to find cheap labor. And they're playing people against each other, not just in the United States, but around the world. And it's time they started paying the price. Okay, we've been playing the same old game, okay, for decades, running around chasing the poor folks. Okay, one of the reasons why people are coming over the border is because their life in their country is crap. And to some extent, we've had something to do with that. Okay, the United States is if you look at history, the United States is entirely responsible for what's happening in Haiti. They're still punishing Haiti for having a revolution 300 years ago. Okay, they're still punishing Haiti. So if we want to talk about looking at what's going on, the artificial category of race, okay, popularized right here in the United States. So people could, they could put one person against the other and maintain power. Okay, just because race is a made-up category doesn't mean that racism is not real. Okay, it is real. Okay, the brothers are hanging from trees. It's real to them. Okay, the guy that got shot in Minneapolis is real to him. Okay, and the people that I live down here with in Tennessee, it's real to them. You want an education? Come down here and spend a day watching the Tennessee legislature. You think you back in the Confederate States of America.
Well, racism, you just take the word race and then you add the suffix ism or ism, it means belief. If you take the word race and add ist or the suffix ist, it is dedication, excellence, and proficiency to one's race. When we talk about racism as we know it, it's more institutional racism. I'm talking about banking, redlining. That's the true racism. The racism of people talking about, man, I hate you. That's a spirit. That's just an individual who just don't know themselves and they're looking to pass off some issues on somebody else and blame somebody else for their conditions.
So
Racism has never held me back.
I'm sorry,
never.
but isn't that a
Good for
unique?
you, brother. Okay, but it's holding some people back down here. It's holding them back economically. It's holding them back politically because we have a.
I'm talking about politically, economically, religiously. People who subscribe to that concern, oftentimes they've allowed themselves to become sucked into that matrix.
So
when the reality is not.
Richard, you just said that the true racism is the redlining, the not being able to buy property, the not being able to get jobs. But
that's banking. That's banking. That's what I'm talking about. That's institutional racism.
Okay,
and what we haven't done
racism exists in say corporate structures and say political structures as well.
Well, one of the things that we can do as a group, I'm talking about as a group, we're the only group of people who don't turn our money over. As soon as we get a dollar, we go outside our community to spend it. I'm gonna go to Paul and buy me a flyer. I'm going to go to Paul and say, hey, man, I want to start a podcast. You see, I'm going to turn that money over to Paul. I'm not going to go out there on Miller Road. You get it? So I'm saying that the conditions within the community is because of the conditions of the mind people have held on to. They're quick to go out and buy some Nikes. They're quick to go out and buy clothes. You got our young ladies who want to be like Niecy and all those reality stars. They buying hair care products. You see, we're misinformed. We're investing in things that don't have no value.
I understand.
As soon as a holiday come up, Christmas and Thanksgiving, everybody want to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. What we need to do is throw a party right within the community and feed the homeless and feed everybody and say, listen, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put our money away because we're going to buy some land over here. Everybody going to have a share. You see, we got to come up with something else. People come into this country and they wonder why black people ain't doing that, because they sticking together. Every other group stick together. We too busy fighting. And then we got certain parties that's pushing race, racism. Y'all need to be the white man, the white man. It ain't the white man. I mean, I got guys who are just like me who need money. It ain't the white man. What it really is it's the person that's keep pushing that to us. And that's what this debate is about. You got the Democrats want to keep you on the plantation. And the Republicans too. A lot of them want you to keep feeding off the welfare system. Welfare spelled backwards is farewell. So
all right, hold that thought, Richard. Let's check in and see what's going on here.
Yes, sir.
Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump thanked you.
Including the climate change.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate.
But are they supposed to call
where I
him,
was going?
Wait, here's my question. Are they supposed to call him President Trump?
Former president.
Right.
Well, they should call him President Trump because he technically is still the president.
He's former president.
Richard, my God, Richard.
All right.
Hey, Paul, where I was going with the talk on the undocumented and stuff. All right, I'm second generation immigrant.
Right.
So my grandfather came over here. But actually, three of my grandparents came over here by the laws that were legal at that time. They registered. They got the permission to come to start working. These people, and I agree with the captain there, that there ain't a lot of Americans that are going to line up to pick tomatoes or strawberries or what have you. So these people that are willing to come over the border, we got to have a system, right? Almost every other country in the world has a system where workers from another country can register to come to work in that country to help augment the workforce.
They do. They have that. It happens every year here in Michigan, up at Mackinac.
Right.
They send people from all over the world come and work up there for 6 months and then go home.
We got the H-1 visa, right? And I've worked with and I understand what it takes to get one of those visas to come to work in the United States. That works great for medical people, for technical people, for people with skills. It don't work good for people that work in the gardening industry. Here in Florida.
Timmy, they do it
right over in Florida, right over in Plant City. Yeah, and you've been through Plant City, driving between Orlando and Tampa. Plant City got a lot of strawberry fields. And some of those Mexicans that are working in those fields are making $25 an hour to pick those strawberries. All right. So the money is there. The money is being paid. But a lot of them are not legally working in the country. That needs to be fixed. That's what needs to be fixed.
And that means that the company that's hired them isn't paying the taxes on them. They're not paying taxes into the system, the whole 9 yards.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's my question.
So
because the news report was all about.
Though, Timmy?
Paul, that's the question. Because the news report was all about how much payroll tax undocumented immigrants were paying. Well, if they're undocumented, and how are they getting on somebody's payroll?
The question is, how are they collecting it? All this money that they're doing for FICA and all that, through whatever this job is, they'll never see because they're not going to be able to claim it ever.
but
So
like that's what I'm saying.
they're
That's
adding oodles of money. I can see that.
in
I can
my
see the twist.
belief. The news story is, how are these undocumented immigrants being employed that they're paying payroll tax when it's supposed to be illegal in this country
Because
to hire an undocumented laborer?
Timmy, the company is making up a bogus name. They're making
Yeah.
up a bogus social security number. They're creating a bogus account to send the money to, and this guy is cashing a check.
We had a police officer get killed on a construction site, and it was a interstate highway construction site. The guy running the loader ran over the cop. Turns out that the guy running the loader and two other people on the site that night weren't even supposed to be working, and yet they were working for this company that had a federal contract.
Right. So does that company still exist, or did they go back?
The company still exists, but I believe they got hit with some heavy-duty fines that night, because of course the kid that was running the front end loader, he disappeared. And when a couple of weeks later the investigation was settled, they had him under arrest and the other people on the site that weren't legally in the United States.
All right. Here, let's do this, guys. Let's listen to the closing. Let's listen to the closing statements, and then we'll talk about those afterwards. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
It's focused on the past and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline.
In
We're being
decline.
laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they laugh. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia.
That's what they're going to remember.
Constitution Center.
The worst.
I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all
Paul.
over the world, and from all of us here at ABC News.
Yeah.
Good night.
I heard you say what about the gave it away?
And that,
Well, it wasn't her. It was the president. Left a bunch of military equipment behind in Afghanistan when they
Don't
left.
we always do that, Timmy? Isn't that how it
There's
goes?
been times where we've pushed it into the ocean rather than leave it behind and pay to bring it home.
And you blow some of it up, and you don't blow some of it up. That's
Yeah.
just standard operating procedure.
That's what he's talking about. But you know, the only thing that I'm going to say on this is that this I'm going to be a president for all the people. If you go back and look at the tape, that's exactly what Joe Biden said. And is this country more or less divided now?
More. It's more divided than it's ever been.
But I'm not the people that I have breakfast at a restaurant every morning, and there's a bunch of Trump folks, and there's a bunch of non-Trump folks, and there's a bunch of I don't give a shit folks. But none of them are folks that are going to take up arms on January 1st to protect anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they may not be ready to take up arms, but I mean, you look at the vitriol that goes back and forth and whatnot. And I was watching the one of her first press conferences was in I believe it was in Detroit, and the Michigan people that organized the vote, not the vote for anybody actually not voting for Biden, and they wanted to come talk to her. And at her press conference or her rally that night, one of them tried to heckle her, and she turned around and said, "What are you going to do? Go ahead and let Trump get reelected or get elected?" And I thought, you know, that's the attitude. They know they own your vote, so you know what I mean.
But
They got you.
I mean, but you can say the same about Trump folks. Oh my goodness, Timmy.
You can say
here's my problem with Trump. Be honest with you, is he lies. He lies all the time. He lies, and it can be fact checked. And after a debate like tomorrow, they're going to say, okay, 47 of the things that Trump said were lies.
Right.
3 of the things that Harris said were lies. So now I'm thinking of a person and a personality, and maybe that's the trait I need in a president. Maybe I need a president that can look me straight in the face and tell me to shoot bleach in my arms to fix, corona. Maybe I need a president that will lie to Putin and tell him, no, we only have 6 nuclear bombs. Or to Xi Jinping and tell him, oh, baby, no, I'll be at the party. Maybe that's what we need. I mean, we haven't had that ever before.
I
think the only thing I think is wrong right now is the guy. I don't like the guy. If they had somebody else fronting this thing that was a little more
That's been the only
credible,
negative.
huh?
That's been the only negative is the guy.
The
The
guy.
policies, the policies I can hang with for the most part.
I'm not
But
against
the
Shake.
guy,
I'm not
the
against Shake.
guy, he's a blowhard.
Well, about the guy, the guy may not be the most handsome. He may not be the most articulate. He may not even be the most liked candidate. But what this really is about is policy. So when we really look at the whole scheme of things,
we got to take him
if
with
you have
caution.
a policy that opposes the establishment is going to push back.
Right.
And
But you're going to get.
And what this establishment is about individuals who are controlled by bankers. They're controlled by individuals who lobby, and these individuals have billions. And if you don't go along with it, they're going to run a candidate that will, and it's about the big money.
Hold on, let's back up, Richard. So we're talking about the 1%ers and the 10%ers, right? The big corporate people,
really talking about
the mega millionaires that have the money to make the influence. But aren't they equally sprinkled Republican and Democrat? Musk is a Republican, and Bouillabaisse
they are. They are, and there are there's a big Democrat bundler from down here in Florida. You ever hear of the law firm Morgan and Morgan? They're licensed. Yeah. So the founder of that law firm, John Morgan, he
loved the Democrats.
He went on Fox News the day that Harris was announced as the presumptive and said, "I just informed the Democratic Party I'm pulling back all my promised donations. They didn't do this right. They should have had a mini caucus. They should have had other candidates. I don't like the way they're doing this, so I just pulled back all of my donations."
Yeah.
Well, that's fine because the way they did it allowed her to use the store chest that they already had.
Right, and that's what he was saying.
If they had done any other way, all those millions and millions of dollars wouldn't have been available to her.
Right, and that's basically what he was saying. He was saying that they did this. She wasn't the most qualified candidate for the position, and the only reason she got this was because they wanted access to that $100 million.
Yeah. Come on, Trump. Trump is more qualified.
I think there was more qualified people on the Republican side, but Trump went through the whole primary process.
Yes, he did,
and got the votes.
And got the vote.
Didn't he kill? I don't want to say kill some people, but didn't some people lose some stuff on the road to that? Wasn't he telling people how to vote?
One of the things that frustrated me the most was the No Labels Party. But the No Labels Party was killed by the Republicans and Democrats working together. Absolutely. NBC did a thing on it.
So what did they want? I mean, if they were strong enough,
they didn't want the competition. They did not want the competition, so they worked together.
You think it was a good thing that they?
Listen,
I think it was a bad thing.
They underestimated Trump, and when he won, they didn't realize, or when he was nominated, they didn't realize, like, oh my God, this guy is in.
No, this particular, I'm talking. Not the first time he ran. This time right here, the No Labels Party was going to run. Joe Lieberman had gotten that No Labels Party kicked off and was going to run. And I thought Joe Lieberman's death is what killed the No Labels Party. But when I went and did some research, I found an NBC article that talked about how the Republicans, the Democrats, and a think tank that was formed by a bunch of former Clinton cronies conspired And what they did was they figured out who the most likely candidates were going to be, and they went to them and told them, if you run as the no labels candidate, your political career is done. We'll ensure you can't even run for dog catcher in the future.
Listen. We gotta call it quits. We're almost 2 hours in. I want to thank both of you guys for jacking in. Richard, I don't want to live in your world. You got me scared as hell.
But
Man.
look up the Days of Bread and Circus, and you'll
Dude,
see what.
I'm going to have to take something to sleep tonight. Me and Elliot Ness might have to we might have to
look
thin
up
some things out. I want to
look up the Days of Bread and Circus in the old Roman Empire, and you'll say, "Boy, that sounds so damn familiar with what's going on right now."
Sounds delicious, huh? All right, guys.
We're
Hey, thanks for joining us as always. It's Eclectic Ramblings. Always looking for good talent. You guys got something going on, give us a call, 810-239-2901. That's 810-239-2901. And remember, enjoy the life you're living, baby. Just until you can live the life you'll enjoy. All right? Peace.
Peace.
Peace.